Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on this week's Tax Rep Network podcast. I'm Eric Green. Joining me is my friend Maya Weinreb. If you don't know her, I actually met her following her online. She has Solvency now bookkeeping, but speaks about starting a business and growing the business. And in particular, what caught my attention, I was wondering, I don't want to say stalker, that sounds negative, but I was watching kind of, just the stuff that you post, Maya, and what caught my attention was the side hustle. I think you might have been interviewed. I may be getting that wrong, but you had been
Hmm.
about starting it. And what's interesting, I started my law practice as a side hustle, tax rep as a side hustle, TG publishing. I mean, it was one of these, I had an idea and then you start working on it, and it actually became what I do. And so I'm thrilled that you have time to talk about this. Um, but just as background, can you just tell the folks at home like what you do, how you got into this?
Yeah. Yeah. So I, straight out of high school, kind of needed a job and was the office manager for my boyfriend at the time, his mom's landscaping company. And so I started doing, AR and AP, not even knowing those terms yet, but sending out the invoices and, collecting money and paying bills. So I got in. So now I'm just like got into bookkeeping, not even knowing that it's bookkeeping, and then kind of went on and took that path as a career because I noticed the bookkeepers made a couple dollars more an hour than the receptionists, So I was like, okay. So I just started doing that, and and people ask me all the time, how did you learn bookkeeping? Where did you go to school? And I'm like, the school of life, man. I just started doing it, and now I've been doing it for 20 years. So um, I started out with Excel and then QuickBooks Desktop and now QuickBooks Online, and I've used a bunch of other software. But once you've been doing it for a while, you really understand how all the pieces fit together. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and we were talking before we went live. Um, you've had several iterations of this, right? Because and I'll tell you, the reason I bring it up is, I tried a whole bunch of things that failed. And what bothers me is people's like, I tried it, it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, so then what? Well, I just went and got a job. I'm like, well,
yeah,
how many people I think Henry Ford went bankrupt. I mean, the entrepreneurs don't just have an idea and it just takes off. You
yeah,
try, it fails. You try, it fails. Um, I had tried Tax Genius, and I was going to move into the education space for CPE because I really thought what you see now is all of these organizations that have like flat, like 399, all you want, continuing ed. They've taken high quality education with speakers that were paid well and have just started a race to the bottom. So I thought that there was this niche. Well, let's put it this way, it wasn't that easy, and it ended up like after a year completely just floundering.
yeah,
But that happens, right? I mean, you
yeah.
learn and
E-
move, pivot and whatever.
even even as an entrepreneur, even once you have something finally going that's successful, then you're like, great, now I'm going to try this thing, and then I've had a couple of failures with other businesses and partnerships that I've tried to do, since I've even started this business. So yeah, there's been several iterations, and it's a tough breed of people. Entrepreneurs is the ones where it's like there's no such thing as a failure. There's only I've probably written this on my social media posts, but I never lose. I win or I learn.
Right.
So everything is just a learning opportunity.
Right. No, it's interesting. And I've learned from mentors that I haven't even met, just listening podcasts, whatever else. So when I started Tax Rep, so what's weird is so Tax Rep, which is now 500 members, multi-million dollar, it's a business. I now have marketing folks. I've got the bookkeeping done. I mean, all of the stuff that started as sort of this. Um, I had an idea, And the idea, so the way I got business as an attorney, I started the law firm as a side hustle. I was working for Deloitte, the big accounting
Mm-hmm.
firm, and I wanted to go on my own. So I had friends who were financial advisors. So I started a little side law practice. And at night and weekends, I'd go meet with clients, do their estate planning, do whatever. Ultimately went on building up my law practice. And the way I got business is you get a bunch of accountants in the room, give a talk, and they refer work.
Mm-hmm.
12 years ago, I had actually probably longer, about 14 years ago, I had one of them come up to me and said, I would pay you if you would teach me to do this. I'm like, huh. So I created an 8-hour training course and realized I wasn't going to sell much of this if I didn't partner with somebody. Called all of the major Intuit, Drake, the NAEA, NATP, CCH. CCH was the only one who said, we can see this being, kind of a little niche thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up launching the IRS Representation Certificate Program. And
Nice.
they ran around, they sold a bunch of them. I then started getting phone calls from accountants. Hey, Eric, I love the videos from CCH. I have a client with a problem. Can I refer them to you? And I was like, why don't you do it? Well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll coach you. So now I'm doing retainer agreements all over the country. And then one of them said, well, can I just pay a monthly flat fee? And so we came up with a membership. So I created a website. Now I was doing training in the website, and it sort of just grew and grew and grew. But we hit a point where I had about 80 members, and it just wasn't growing. And I listened to a podcast. It was Bedros Keuilian being interviewed. He has Fit Body Boot Camp. He was being interviewed, and he was talking about how he couldn't sell Fit Body Boot Camp, and he was, they don't get it, they're too cheap. And his mentor said, well, no, 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 no. If they aren't buying what you're selling, the problem is your message, not them. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, you know what? That's right. And so I found a woman who had a training program for accountants, but not in my space. She had 3,000 members. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
how do I? And she said, I'll consult. 2 days later, she called me. She's like, I know what your problem is already. You're talking about expertise, expertise, expertise. Nobody cares. You need to change and tell them, how do they make money doing this? She's
Yeah.
yeah, she helped me rewrite my copy, and we went from 80 to 200 members in a month. Yeah,
Wow.
and so
That's so
so,
cool.
but I have the curse of the entrepreneur.
Yeah,
This
you
is going well. What else can
do.
I get into? And
Yeah.
it's weird how these things happen. I heard another podcast. It's Alex Hamosi. It's the podcast is called The Game. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't listen to it, I highly recommend it. He
Okay.
he started he started a franchise thing, and then he now has acquisitions.com. And so he he was talking about he went to a mastermind that he paid a lot of money to be part of, and they were making good money at this, growing every month, and then he was going to start a supplements business and all that. And somebody who was the COO of a $10 billion company came up to him and said, look, just humor me here. What if you didn't start the supplements business? You've got this thing that's going well. Why don't you take that money and double down on what you know already works?
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually because it's almost like you think, you got here, I won, now what else can I get into? If
Yeah.
you got something that's
I had
working, run with it.
I had the CEO of a big, you know, probably almost $1 billion company that had just gone public, and I happened to meet him getting some vitamin IVs, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And he was like, yes, you can pick my brain. And I was like, and so I just started asking him all these questions, and I said, you know what, I want to start this business, and I want to do this, and and he said the same thing to me. He said, why don't you, you have this successful thing, why don't you double down on that and make that go? And then he also said to me, service-based businesses are, like, they are harder in a certain way, right, to make big. And he goes, why don't you figure out a product to sell in your business, in your existing business? And I was like, I have ideas. I want to do this and I want to do this and I'm looking at, getting a software for this or, creating a bookkeeping class for that. And he was like, great. And then he's like, tell you what, here's my email address. You can email me once a month with questions. And I was like, okay. And I
That's a nice
totally
guy.
haven't done it because I feel like I don't have any important enough questions to ask this,
Well, I
important
mean,
person.
so and for those people who don't know, so what Maya does is bookkeeping. So, accountants, I'm a big fan of the CPAs and EAs. You should not be doing bookkeeping. This is not a good use of your time, whether it's rep, which is my thing, or financial advising. Go get your CFP. Forensic accounting. Go get your CFE. I mean, the forensic accountant that we were talking about before that I use is
Yeah.
750 an hour. He's
Yeah.
more expensive than I am, and you need him. In a
Mm-hmm.
divorce or criminal case, who's fighting about price at a time like this?
Yeah.
But the question is, um, could you automate with software so you could do outsourced, almost
Mm-hmm.
so you could do white label, but the client would have to be set up in a way so that you could download from the bank, because otherwise you're right. If you're going to pay per hour, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I think that you're in a space and you're doing well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I've tried. Even if I do other like TG publishing, it's the publications of the books that I've done on rep. So I've really tried to stay in that advice. I'm trying to stay in my lane
Yeah.
versus starting 18,000 other, because what happens is you start multitasking. And I can tell you multitasking is not doing five things well. It's doing five things mediocre.
Yeah, and then you kind of get dispersed, and you're not like I think it's different. There's these big, movie stars or rappers or whatever. They make a ton of money on their main thing, and then they take that money, and now they have investment money, and they have people they can hire, and they can go invest in things and start other things. And that's not the same as when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, and you're like, okay, I made my first 100,000 or my first 200,000. Now I'm going to start another thing, and now you're all over the place and you're just like pancakes all over the universe. And if you just get focused and build your thing that you're doing to be successful, then you can either do more things in that same lane, like in that vertical, or similar things in different verticals. But if you stay kind of focused, then you're going to be much more successful. Like someone pointed out to me recently, like, well, what did Amazon start doing? Now they sell everything. But what did they start out with? What did
Book.
Apple start with?
Yep.
Exactly. And what did Microsoft? Everyone started with one thing, and they put all of their energy and effort into that and made it super successful and then branched out.
Right. So what is your advice for folks who are listening to this? I work at a big firm and I want to go out and do my own thing. I mean, how you kind of got started falling into this, into bookkeeping?
Yeah, I did, but I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing. I remember I got a job interview one day as a very young adult, and the hiring person said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I said, probably have my own company. And she was very offended because I was like, wait, was I supposed to say that I want to work here on this entry level job for 5 years? And she was like, some people do. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I said the wrong thing. But so I always kind of knew that I wanted to do my own thing, and I tried and I failed, but like how you were saying earlier, I honestly never looked at it as failing. I've only recently looked at it and been like, oh, I did try to start this company several times and failed, but I didn't fail. I just at the time I just felt like, well, I just didn't do it yet. Like I started and then something came up, or I took a job, or I got busy doing something else or whatever. And I just never really finished starting it. So I never felt like a failure. I just felt like I never really, was focused. So I started several times. And at one time it was like, okay, I'm going to like get rich people and pay their bills for them because nobody has time to pay their bills. And I did that. And I had a few clients, and then, I got busy and they got busy and we didn't do it. And then another time it was like, okay, I'm going to get I'm going to get my own bookkeeping clients. And I got a few. And then, and then I got a job offer to be a CFO for a marketing company. And I was like, well, I can't turn that down. And then, so then I was doing that, but then I still had some of my clients, and you know what I mean? And then I was the CFO for a couple of years. And then, and I finally said to my boss at the time, who's a really good friend of mine, like we grew up together. I said, you know what? Like, I have more potential over here. And he said, you know what? You're right. You should start that. And so I did. And I had a few clients, but not even enough to pay my bills. And so I took out a loan that was going to cover me for maybe a few months of expenses. And I just took the leap. And it's one of those things where, like, all right, well, now you're committed because you don't really have another option. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who, at the time kind of wanted to help me. And I was telling him, yeah, so I tried to start here and then this happened. And then I tried to start here and this happened. And he tells me, he goes, based on your pattern, you're going to get a job offer in the next few days and you're going to take it. And I was like, no, first of all, I'm not going to get a job offer because you're crazy. You're insane. And second of all, even if I did, I wouldn't take it. And he was like, okay, we'll see. And within a few days, I got a job offer. And, up until that time, I was maybe making like the most I'd made was like $35 an hour as the, even as the CFO, because it was a small startup, right? So it was like $35 an hour or something. And I was like, and I was charging my clients for bookkeeping at the time, I think $75 an hour. So I was like, I would never take a job, blah, blah, blah. This is way better. And then all of a sudden, within a few days, because he was right, I got a job offer, and it was to be the in-house bookkeeper for some, really rich bigwig. And I was like, guys, I was like, I'm not looking for a job. I wouldn't take a job. You'd have to pay me $150,000 a year for me to even consider it. And the guy goes, okay. And he called me back the next day and he goes, okay, starting salary, $150,000. And I fell out of my chair, never had even heard of that much money before. And obviously I had because I did bookkeeping for other people, but not for me personally. And literally spent the day curled up in a ball in my bed, calling my friends, like, what should I do? And every single one of them told me to take the job. And every single one of them, I convinced them why I shouldn't take the job. They're all like, it's $150,000 starting salary. Are you crazy? And I was like, maybe, because I think I could make more money than that if I have my own company. And they were like, okay. And, and I did. It took me a few years to make that much take home, but I did.
Yep.
So, there's and this guy telling me my pattern was right because I had started and not failed, but kind of given up and just taken the job or whatever, gone the easier path. And the easier path is not, usually the most rewarding path.
But it's so funny you say that. My 100th episode, I had Amy Vetter on. I don't know if you know Amy, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about you have to take the path that's more dangerous, or at least it feels more dangerous. But I have to tell you, when the economy turns, it's the employees that get let go. No one's letting me go.
Right. I mean, you might lose some clients. I've definitely had clients that I've lost because they've closed their businesses because of the economy. But
no, it's the thing that people have to understand, I think, is like people look at entrepreneurs, the tax, and you can lease a car and all. What you have to understand is you are going to work harder, much harder than you did as an employee, right? And I forget who said this, but they said, do you know what Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, I forget who else, Dan Pena, what these people have in common? They all slept in the office. They all worked like animals when they started. Now, Bill Gates doesn't have to anymore, but when I started my law practice, I worked all week at Deloitte, which is not a 9-to-5 job. And
Mm-hmm.
every night
Yeah, they want at least 80 hours, right?
all right, and every night and every weekend, um, when we launched Tax Rep, creating content and all of that, plus running my law practice, it's you're going to work hard, and um, if you're going to take,
The work life balance myth. Is there? I think there's a book called that, right? It's just like
yeah,
you don't get to live the life that you want if you're not willing to bust your ass and do what it takes. I started my company thinking, and when I hired my first contractor, I was like, this is so great. I don't have to work anymore. I just will make them do all the work. Because really deep down, I'm lazy. I feel like most entrepreneurs deep down are lazy, and we're
oh yeah,
constantly trying to work out better solutions to get more things done faster, right? So I hired my first person thinking that, and then I started realizing, oh, I see. The more people I hire, the more I have to work. Like it's more work. And now instead of working 40 hours or maybe 50, 60 hours at a job, now I'm working 100 hours a week. I'm barely sleeping, and then when I'm out seeing my friends, all I'm doing is talking about my company and networking, and I'm
yeah.
just working all the time. And it was like, oh, I see. Yeah, no, there's no such thing as work-life balance. When people say that to me, my employees, I'm like, well, yeah, maybe for employees there's work-life balance.
Yeah, no, they a couple things. They when I was at Deloitte as a summer, they took us to Scottsdale or wherever their training facility is, and they bring in the head partner from the LA office, who's like huge rainmaker and all that. He rides a Harley. He had long hair. I mean, he really was not the typical what you think of as Big Four partner. And somebody asked him, "How do you maintain work-life balance?" Because that was now a buzz thing, you know.
Uh-huh.
And he literally said, "I have none. I'm in at 5 a.m. I work at least until 7 p.m. I'm in usually at least one day on the weekend." Yeah, and he was just like flat out, "I have no work life balance." The saying
Yeah.
goes is that an entrepreneur is willing to work like other people won't, so that they can live life like other people can't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. And that's so true. Like I've been traveling almost every other weekend for the last probably since tax season ended, you know. And mostly it's all for work, and I'm doing networking, I'm going to conferences, but still like when I planned out years ago what I wanted my life to be like, I wanted to be able to travel and go wherever I wanted and do whatever I wanted, and I'm able to do that now. I mean, within reason, but like, and it's again, I'm doing it mostly for work, but on purpose because it's aligned that way. It's not just like I'm not trying to be on vacation all the time. I just want to be able to see cool places and eat food that I haven't eaten before and see people, and go different places. And then I'm trying to elevate that. And like, how do I do that and like get to where I can, I don't know, fly private or at least first class or something. So I'm working on that next, but I am living the life that I envisioned, years ago. But yeah, there's no work life balance in it. It's just a work balance.
well, when I started, the advice for lawyers, there was a book called "Teach Me to Solo," and what it talked about is you needed nice office space, you needed nice furniture. All that shit is gone. All right, because
Yeah.
so I have a chapter in my book. If I were starting a practice, laptop, I would get eFax, right? The point is, if when you do this, one of the advantages, and my wife and I go to Israel, I'm working, but I
Mm-hmm.
work where I want, I work when I want.
Yeah,
With the internet, with everything else, I don't have to be tethered to an office.
exactly.
And so, and by the way, I always fly first class. In fact, it was Chuck Reddick, who was our former IRS commissioner. Before he was commissioner, Chuck was a friend of mine. And I went to LA, which is where he is. And I'm like, I hate the flight, whatever it I mean, I'm a big guy. And Chuck was like, who's out bigger than I am. And Chuck was like, you go first class, right? And I said, no, it's like $1,500. He said, what's your billable rate? and at the time I was like $400. He said, "You can't find 2 or 3 hours of work to do on the plane." And I was like, "Oh yeah, duh."
Yeah.
And so I fly first class everywhere, and I just make sure I bring something
Yeah.
with me, fill an hour or two. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I do try to fly first class, but it gets so dumb because I'm like domestic first class is like not that great. You just get a bigger seat. And then so I did a whole trip. I did London, Paris, Tel Aviv, and I did it all, business class. And I was like, I'm never flying economy ever again. And then a few weeks later, my friend was like, you need to come to London with me for the weekend. And it was like in 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah, that's gonna be an economy ticket, isn't it? Because I was like, I can't, it's not in my budget right now to do a whole nother one. So we managed to get upgraded on the way there, but on the way back, it was 11 hours in coach. And I was like, never again.
we came back from Passover in Israel, and with the whole family, and we because we had planned so late. For those people who don't know, the fall high holiday Sukkot time and Passover are the worst times to be flying in and out of Israel because every Jew in the world wants to be there. So I'm
Yeah.
in coach in a seat with the other seat in front of me for 11 hours, and I thought I was going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
Um, it's brutal, but the
Yeah.
the lesson. So for folks who want to make the leap, here's what I want to tell you. And again, if you listen to the episode 100 with Amy Vetter, and Maya, I think, has confirmed this. If you want to, let's say you want to start your own rep practice, and you're working at a firm or whatever. Listen, Maya took a big risk, but also at the time I had no family. When I started my practice, I had our oldest child. So I was married, but my wife had a salary, and I could figure out we weren't going to lose the house if this didn't work. But I have to tell you, for several months, I lined everything up. I had friends line up potential clients for me. And I literally sat down and walked through this. And my wife, at that point, Dina, said, "You know what? Go for it. You've done." Um, the point, if you want to do this, my advice is understand whatever, because you have your day job, you've got your family obligation, whatever time you have, you know, God damn it, you better be caffeinated, motivated. I mean, you've got to
Yeah.
go.
You
You
have to
and
be hustling. You don't. And the one thing that's so hard about it, especially if once you quit your day job, and this is probably pretty common, but I went through like an entrepreneur depression because I was like, no one cares if I get up in the morning or not. I don't have to answer to anyone. And you have to shift your whole mindset to there's no external motivation. You are doing it because you want to. And whether you're motivated, whether you're having a good day and you wake up, and I'm not a morning person, right? So whether you wake up and you're like, blah, or whether you wake up and you're like, wow, I just got 3 hours of sleep and now I have to start the next thing, like you are your only source of motivation. So you have to just shift your mindset. There's no boss going to be like, where are you? You're supposed to be here at 9 a.m. Like it's all on you. And it's one of those things where it's like, I follow Grant Cardone with his whole like 10x mindset and all that. So he always is like, commit first and then figure it out later. So you just go, okay, good, I'm doing it. And it's great to get it lined up like you did. I did not have it lined up. I had a few clients and I was like, well, and I got a loan to cover me for a few months.
Mhm.
And I was just like, okay, if I, can't pay my rent, my sister has a couch. I don't know. That was like, but I better figure it out. And I committed and I figured it out.
Yeah. No, I think my big thing I'm telling people is, so first of all, a couple things. To do this, you don't have to make. I'll give you an example. Let's say you are working at a firm and you're making $100,000. What do you need? And inevitably, tax rate I need 100,000. No, no, no. What do you need? Sit down and break down what you need. It might only be 60.
Yeah, just
All
to
right.
live on.
So, in other words, I don't need to make the leap. A lot of people figure they need to maintain where that is not going to work.
Yeah,
Um,
rarely.
Figure out what you need to get by. Because here's the other thing: it will never get big until you do it full time. So you
Hmm.
can work on it on the side. For me, it was like, okay, what do I need? I'm making 100 now. I need 70. All right, what do I
Yeah,
need to get to 70? Once you think you have that lined up, or it's within striking distance, that's when you jump, because it will never get big as long as it's a side thing. It'll always ever be a side thing.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
that is tough for people to get their head around. But also, what do you want? Because the biggest thing I think is, oh, I want money. Well, that's nice, but what do you want? Describe for me what you want your day to look like, and dollars. All right, and engineer backwards. All right,
yeah,
I want to make the 100 with the over and everything. I need to be bringing in 200. Okay, where am I now, and what do I need to get to 200? Now it's not a dream; it's a plan, and you
yeah,
just sit and execute on the plan. And
yeah.
I find people get caught up in the unimportant stuff. The first thing I can lease a car. How about you make money before you start worrying about leasing the car? All right.
Yeah.
I can.
Especially these days, I like you don't even need a car. I mean, depending on what city you're in, but it's like you have your laptop and you have your living room, and all of my employees work from home, and I'm blessed that this time everyone considers that a benefit. There was a time when it was like, oh my gosh, you don't have an office; they have to work from home, and now it's everyone wants to work from home, which is great. But it's like, yeah, so do you need to lease a car? Do you need a fancy office?
And by the way, um, if we have offices in Manhattan, Stamford, West Hartford, and New Haven. New Haven is the only real office. The rest
Mhm.
are with a company called Regis.
Yeah,
It's like $30 a month per location, whatever it is.
yeah.
If we need to book, I can go on, book in Manhattan. People show up. We're in a big commercial building. I have a conference room. If I need to meet people in that kind of a setting, but more and more, and that was a problem before COVID, when
Yeah.
clients wanted to come see you. Now,
Yeah.
even the older clients, well, can't we do like Zoom? Absolutely. You
Yeah,
know,
totally. No, and I have an office like that in Tampa, so like I'm in my home office in Clearwater, but and I don't meet people because it's like I have a remote company, but if it's ever like kind of a networking thing or whatever, like, okay, I have an office in Tampa if I needed to book the conference room, but yeah, I never do. I'm like, how about Zoom?
right?
I'll send you a cup of coffee. I'll send you a Starbucks delivery for you.
Yep. No, I think that it's more doable today than and ever, between the internet, between resources, between, I can tell you, just LinkedIn, being able to connect with people, um, advertising on like Google ads or Facebook or whatever to target.
And even just social media, because for bookkeeping, it's all trust based marketing, right? So it's like all referrals and word of mouth. And so it's people who see me on social media,
Yep.
talking about, yeah, exactly, talking about bookkeeping, talking about being an entrepreneur. And then they refer me to other people, even though I never even did bookkeeping for them. And I'm just like, thank you. And it's all because they trust me, and I have tons of testimonials and success stories and things. So obviously I have a great company, or else I wouldn't be successful. But I just find it hilarious because when I've tried to do like cold email marketing campaigns, they don't get any traction. But when I do a podcast and post it on social media, I get all this interest and clients.
Well, and by the way, my decision to bring people on, usually either I know them, and I ask them to come on, like the IRS executives, that kind of stuff, or I have been following them, and I feel that, in watching your stuff, I was like, you're legit. And that's why I reached out, because, um, plus I'm always happy to meet other like-minded people.
Yeah.
I was just talking about this. So we have a mastermind group and we launched our 2024. I was just telling a lot of folks that are looking at it, it's the beauty of the mastermind model is along the same lines. You want to be around like-minded people. The strongest, the strongest force, I think, for the folks listening is the image and belief you have about yourself. And how do you basically improve that, increase that, all that? It really comes down to they say you are the five people who you hang around. This is why.
Yeah.
They will move,
I
they
love
literally
that.
will move and shift you. So for instance, if financially I'm an eight, let's say, Ed Milet actually did a talk on this. He said, like it's like a thermostat on the wall. All right, let's say Eric Green is set at 80 degrees. The We open up the windows and cold. I mean, the worst things in life come in. It'll kick on and regulate back to 80 degrees. The opposite is true. It's a super hot day. Things are getting hotter and hotter, better and better. If nothing changes about my view of myself and all that, my personal beliefs, over time, I will cool my life right back down to 80 degrees. So the way to shift your identity, hang around, like if I'm 80 degree and you're a 200 degree, we're in, around each other, even virtually over and over, you will actually move my thermostat somewhere between mine and yours, 100, 120. Same in
Yeah.
fitness, same in religion, same in anything.
Yeah.
I have some friends who are Orthodox Jews, and I find that as I hang around with them, I tend to start, kind of wandering more into, being a little bit more observant because
Hmm.
we influence each other. So for the folks listening,
Yeah.
if you are the smartest person in your room, you are in the wrong room.
Wrong room.
Right.
100%. I know. And you know what else I love though? Is when you see the people coming together, like some of the people that I've known a long time, that you knew were on the same trajectory as you, but like especially as young adults where you weren't successful yet. I love seeing how all these people are so successful. And a lot of them, that I really admired and saw their hustle are more successful than me. And it's like, okay, so maybe they weren't super successful when I first met them, but we were all on that same trajectory. And that's why we gravitated towards each other and we lift each other up, and it's just so beautiful to see. Or in religion, right now I feel closer to my religion, to being Jewish than I ever have before. And it's really interesting. It's like in adversity, we've come together, and I feel closer. And like I told you, my friends, my girlfriends that are pregnant, I'm just like, thank you so much. Like it's so beautiful, and I've never looked at it that way before because I've just always been Jewish. I was born Jewish. It's you couldn't take it away from me if you tried.
Yeah. October 7th had a big impact on those of us who grew up thinking, well, that'd never happen again. And then to fucking watch it live is unbelievable.
Yeah.
No, so for the folks listening who have a side hustle or would like to have one, go for it. Go for it. But just
Yeah.
understand you're going to work. If you want, unless you just want to leave it as a side hustle, but if you want to really make that your thing, you're going to work.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too where it's like, reach for the stars and you're going to at least land on the moon. So you have to think about that. If you just want it to be a side hustle, or if you say like one of my most hated words, you just want to be comfortable. You're probably not going to be comfortable if all you want to be is comfortable. It's not probably going to be a successful side hustle if all you want is a successful side hustle, because you got to think big. You got to, reach big to get to your goals. And it's always going to take more effort than you think it is. And that's a blessing and a curse of an entrepreneur, right? If we knew how hard it was, we might not do it. So it's going, just know that it's going to take more work than you think it is. And if I can say one last thing, it's this whole analysis paralysis thing. People who have to figure it out before they start. Like I agree with what you said as far as like figure out what you need to make and like let's be logical about this. But I have friends who have been like, I want to start a business, but I don't know what kind of business. Or I want to do this thing, but I can't, I'm trying to figure, like, you don't need to build the website and do and get everything before you start. Just start.
Yep.
Like get a product and figure out, or a service and figure out how to sell it.
It's amazing what you accomplish when you show up and just get to work, right? No, but I noticed behind you the book on your shelf, and I agree with you. If you wanted to make $1 million, you shoot for 10 million. If you're going to fall short, I'd rather fall short of 10 million than 1 million.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Oh, my 10x rule. Yeah.
Yep. No. I know. I am also a fan of Mr. Cardone.
Yeah.
And so it's get started. Just get started and get moving, and
Exactly.
you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And you, so anyway, because you help people with their books. I mean, you see businesses doing well that struggle and all the rest. By the way, for folks, we have business folks on here, attorneys on here who want to get a hold of you, or even accountants that are like, you know what, I'm building my rep practice. Maya, do you want my bookkeeping clients? How do folks get a hold of you?
Yeah, I want all of your bookkeeping clients. I love bookkeeping clients. I try to help every single one of them. Sometimes I have to be reminded that I'm not a charity. I do so much, free help. But yeah, so solvencynow.com, or you can email me, Maya, which is Maya, at solvencynow.com, or I even have a business number that you can call, and it is 813-336-1574. I used to give out my cell phone number, but I've been told I'm not allowed to do that anymore. So it's 813-336-1574, solvencynow.com. And yeah, we help mostly service-based and professional businesses, but also e-commerce. We've got nonprofits. I've got actors, influencers. So anybody that I can help, I help. I've got 5 full-time bookkeepers. I've got a customer service rep. I've got a bookkeeping manager. I've got a full-time quality control person, and I'm always hiring more bookkeepers too. So it's like you're really getting a big team with a lot of experience. Between us, we have a lot of experience, and we can tackle complicated things. If you're a lawyer, and like we were talking about, if you have divorce clients, or all these different things that you need several years worth of bookkeeping for them, we can do that. We do projects, we do monthly bookkeeping. So and I do consultation. So if somebody's like, just starting out or really small and they just want to learn how to use QuickBooks or know what they should be doing, I do consultations too. So I really, my personal purpose is to help business owners succeed. And the mission statement for my company is complete and perfect financial records for the business owner's peace of mind. So yeah.
It's so critical. I will put a link below in the description for those of you who want to reach out and get a hold of Maya. And we are probably talking about doing some webinars together. So I'll put that out when that is lined up. And no, Maya, thank you for taking the time. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love doing this. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope we can do it again soon.
All right, everyone, thank you for joining in this week on Tax Rep Network podcast. And everyone, you're probably going to be listening to this after Thanksgiving. So I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving, and see you next week.